let's talk about the very beginnings of English colonization in America, because it is a story that is chaotic, desperate, and let's be honest, a complete and total disaster at first. You might think you know how it all went down, but the real story is so much stranger.
So get this, England's first shots at building colonies in the New World were an absolute catastrophe. I mean, entire colonies just vanished. People were starving by the thousands. So how on earth did they go from the absolute brink of failure to building the foundations of an empire? Well, that's the puzzle we're going to solve today.
Okay, so first things first, why even bother? Why risk it all to cross this massive, dangerous ocean? Well, it really boiled down to this powerful mix of God, greed, and good old-fashioned national pride.
Way back in 1584, this writer, Richard Hakluyt, he basically wrote the business plan for colonization. He framed it as a win-win-win. First, for God. It was a religious mission. Protestant England had to go save America from the influence of Catholic Spain. Second, for the country, it was a social solution. You've got a lot of homeless people or vagabonds in England? Perfect. Send them to the New World, give them land and a job. And finally, for the crown? Well, that was all about the money. New trade, new stuff to sell, and hopefully a ton of profit.
And this idea right here, this was huge. The notion that you could build an empire and do God's work at the same time, that was an incredibly potent idea. It turned the whole venture from just a money-making scheme into, a moral quest.
But there was this one massive problem standing in England's way, and that problem was Spain. Before England could even dream of colonizing America, they had to somehow get past the most powerful navy on the planet.
Which brings us to 1588 and the legendary Spanish Armada. And on paper, this was a total joke. Spain rolls up with this huge force of 130 massive ships. The English are completely outnumbered, but their ships were smaller, faster, way more agile. So after the English fleet kind of danced around them, a freak storm, which the English called the Protestant wind, by the way, smashed the Armada to pieces. It was this stunning, almost unbelievable victory that finally opened up the seas.
So the door to America is finally open. Great, right? Well, actually, stepping through that door turned out to be nearly impossible. England's first serious tries weren't just failures, they were straight-up mysteries.
Take the famous lost colony of Roanoke. In 1587, a guy named John White drops off about 150 people to start a settlement. He has to zip back to England for more supplies, but then the war with Spain breaks out and he's stuck there for 3 years. When he finally gets back to Roanoke in 1590, nothing. Everybody's gone. The place is just empty. No sign of a fight, no bodies, just a total baffling mystery that we still talk about today.
So the next big attempt is Jamestown. And this one would eventually become the first permanent English colony. But that little word permanent? Man, it came at a cost that is just almost impossible to imagine. In 1607, 3 ships land in what we now call Virginia. And the colonists, they had no idea what they were doing. They started starving, they got sick, and the only reason any of them survived that first awful winter was because the local Powhatan people helped them out. And you'd think things would get better when more people arrived, but nope, it just got worse. It was a downward spiral into a total nightmare of disease, hunger, and fighting.
2%. Just look at that number for a second. Let it sink in. What in the world could that possibly represent?
That was the survival rate. The colony wasn't a colony, it was a death trap. Get this, of the first 17,000 people who came to Virginia over 10 years, only 351 were still alive. 351. The whole project was a complete and utter disaster, and they were this close to just giving up on the whole thing.
But then, just as everything was about to fall apart, something completely out of left field happens. A single product shows up that doesn't just save Jamestown, it ends up changing the future of the entire continent.
So really, think about it. The colony is on life support. You've got a 98% mortality rate. What could possibly pull it back from the brink? What's the miracle fix? Well, the answer was almost ridiculously simple.
It wasn't gold, it wasn't some hidden treasure. It was a plant. Seriously. A colonist named John Rolfe starts growing this new kind of sweet tobacco, and it turns out people in Europe absolutely lost their minds over it. They couldn't get enough. And the impact was just insane. Look at this growth chart. Jamestown goes from exporting basically nothing to shipping 15 million pounds of tobacco every year. In just a few decades, this one cash crop single-handedly turned this dying outpost into a money-making machine practically overnight. But, and this is a huge but,
this incredible success had a very dark side. All that tobacco needed land, a lot of land. And that meant the English approach to dealing with the native people was about to take a hard, violent turn for the worse.
A new, brutal playbook took shape. And these tactics weren't actually new. The English had already practiced them trying to take land from Catholics in Ireland. So now, in America, any idea of coexisting with Native Americans was just thrown out the window. It was replaced with violent land grabs, all justified by this deep-seated belief that they were culturally and religiously superior. This became the go-to model for colonization.
And it was this ruthless, profit-driven model that really fueled the English expansion across the coast. It led directly to the founding of the 13 colonies, which, as we know, would eventually become the United States.
And that leaves us with a pretty wild final thought, right? Jamestown was a catastrophic failure, literally saved from disappearing forever by one plant that became a fad in Europe. Without tobacco, it's pretty likely the English would have just packed up and gone home. And it really makes you wonder, if it weren't for that one lucky crop, what would the world even look like today?